Hey, what's up everybody? This is OurMusicBox and today I want to show you guys one of the best boss killing builds in the entire game, and this is going to be on Flak. Now I want to start doing more builds that are specifically focused on killing bosses as quickly as possible, because now every boss, every named enemy has multiple dedicated loot drops to them, so being able to kill them as quickly as possible is the best way to just farm gear in general, and the best way to just target those specific god roll items or those specific items you need to be able to complete your builds to then be able to solo everything in the game. And with the new Maliwan raid coming out that's extremely hard, and Mayhem 4 being extremely hard, being able to farm the gear you need is much more important than ever. So this is going to be on Flak. I'm going to be doing builds for every character, maybe multiple, maybe one, or probably more, to be honest, but boss specific builds for all of them. So let's go straight into the talents. Now, one of the best things about this build is that no matter what kind of gear you have, the talent layout itself is going to dictate pretty much how the build plays, because even if you don't have really good gear, even if you don't have good boss killing weapons and stuff like that, the build's still going to play really similar to even a god rolled version of the build, just because of the talent layout. And pretty much just getting extra gear is pretty much just increasing your power, increasing the amount of damage you do, but the build itself is still going to play pretty similar. So first off, we're starting in the Stalker Tree. We have 5 out of 5 Furious Attack, which gives you a stacking buff on shooting enemies, gives you gun damage, handling, pet damage. Then we have Overclocked, which gives you 10% fire rate and an extra 10% when reloading. 5 out of 5 in that. 4 out of 5 into Eager to Impress. Mainly get lower in the tree, but if you're killing ads in the fight, this can also help. This pretty much reduces your action skill cooldown when you or your pet get kills. Then we have Turntail and Run, which gives you damage reduction and health regen while moving, and while standing still you gain gun damage and fire rate. Then we have Hidden Machine, which when a target has no target, or an enemy has no target, or is attacking a different target besides you, you have 30% increased damage, which is super good because this is a fadeaway build, and we're going to have that up all the time when we're in fadeaway. Then Fast and the Furious, which while you're above half health, you and your pet gain damage and you gain movement speed. Then we have the Power Inside, which is one of the strongest talents in the game, especially for Flak. You and your pet gain increased damage after you activate an action skill, and when you're at full health, this is doubled, so it's 50% for 15 seconds. And doing this on a boss fight, you're going to have this up a majority of the boss fight. Even if you go longer than 15 seconds in a boss fight, you're going to be able to get this up pretty quickly, or probably before the 15 seconds is up most of the time. So our action skill ability, like I said, is Fadeaway. We're using Gorilla in the Mist, which makes it so you can get as many crits as you want. It just goes by duration now. And then Unblinking Eye, which increases your critical hit damage, and then that resets after certain amount of hits. Now for the second tree, we're going Hunter. We should probably go into the Master Tree actually, because we only got 3 points in this, but this is what you should probably put in first, because this is incredibly important to the build. The gun damage isn't that good, but the action skill duration is 45% increase. This is massive for fadeaway. This makes it last that much longer. You're able to get constant crits for just that much longer. This is really important for this build. So for the Hunter Tree, we're doing 5 out of 5 Interplanetary Stalker. Now this is so good because of the class mod we're using, because it's a Hunter kill skill. Now the class mod we're using is the Bounty Hunter, which gives you a chance when shooting enemies with your guns to just activate your kill skills. Now this also gives the effect that bosses are now treated as pretty much all enemy types, so humans, beasts, and robotics. So since we can activate Hunter kill skills by shooting stuff, we now start gaining these stacks, which is pet damage, just damage on you, just damage in general. And then you also get extra stacks, or extra bonuses when fighting different enemies, which is just corrosive damage, action skill damage, movement speed. Now, since our action skill, or our class mod actually makes bosses be considered as all these, we're getting all of these buffs as well just from shooting them. Now we put 2 into Hunter's Eye, which also does the same thing that we just talked about. It gives you all these bonuses, which is really good. But I put 3 into Head Count, which when you crit, you have a chance to decrease your action skill cooldown. Now, why I think this is super important, and you don't have to go into this, but I do recommend this, because especially if you're going against bosses that have multiple phases, being able to get your fadeaway up for the phases that they're not immune is super important. And this, you can get your action skill up very quickly when it is down and you're just critting stuff, especially with a lot of the faster firing weapons. Now, if you want to take this out and put the rest in the Hunter's Eye, you'll gain a decent bit of damage, but you're not going to have fadeaway up very quickly after you use it the first time. So if you want to do that, I'd recommend doing it for something like bosses that don't have immunity phases. So something like Grave Ward or Captain Trant, General Trant, stuff like that that don't have immunity phases, where you can just burst them down super quickly. Then we have 5/5 and a 2 Fang, and this just gives you a 25% chance to fire an extra projectile. Now this is incredibly strong for the main weapons I'm using, but I'll go over that when we get into the gear. We have one in a big game just for our last point. Your hunter skills are more effective and last longer. Then we have the most dangerous game. This is a massive buff. It's another hunter kill skill, so it can proc off our class mod, but this one's super good because it's only 1 stack, and with 6 out of 3, because we have 3 from our class mod, we gain a 50% damage buff, 20% critical hit damage buff, 50% handling buff, our pet gets 54% damage increase, and this lasts for 120 seconds. So it's a really good chance for this to activate very early on in the fight, and then just never go away. So that is a massive, massive buff with how many points we have into it. So that is all of the talents. Also, the pet we're using is the Spider Ant Scorcher, which does give you health per second, which is decent if you need survivability, but it gives 10% increased elemental damage, which pretty much every weapon I'm using is elemental, so it's a really decent damage increase. So that's pretty much all the talents. So let's go into our gear now. Now, first I want to go over a glitch that happens with one of Flak's anointed effects that he can get, and this has happened for pretty much since the game came out. I've heard of this on Reddit and stuff before, but it really didn't have many uses before. But now with some of the new anointeds we got, specifically the elemental ones on grenades and shields, this is much more prevalent. And if you have a weapon with this on it, it's pretty much inevitable that it's going to proc for you. I usually don't do any glitches in any of my build videos, but this one is inevitable, and the weapon I have actually has it on it, so you really can't play around it unless you just have another weapon that doesn't have this anointed on. Basically, this is grants an extra charge of rack attack. Now, this works for anything, because when you're using rack attack, pretty much this adds another charge on top of rack attack when you switch the weapon that has this anointed. And basically what this is going to do is, when you switch to this weapon, it's considering your action skill to have just ended for whatever reason, even without using an action skill. So it will proc my extra elemental damage on my shield and grenade mod. There really wasn't any other anointeds that worked with this that well before, but now since these are out, it works like that. And pretty much since I'm using a elemental projector artifact, this does proc since I'm switching to apply status effects to myself. So just to show you guys, we're doing fire damage right here, and if we just switch to this weapon, now it's doing the corrosive. I have extra fire damage on my shield, so you can't really see that besides a high number, but we have radiation I should say. We have radiation on this, so as you'll see, it's just doing the extra radiation damage as well. So that's pretty much what's going to happen. It's pretty unavoidable if you have this on the weapon you're using. So I just want to go over that. I usually don't do any glitches in build videos, but this is the King's Call I have that's fire, and it has this effect on it, so it's gonna happen in the video anyway. So past that, the things down here, so the class mods, we already went over the class mod. I have a really good rolled one. Pretty much any of the talents I could roll on this class mod are going to be pretty good. All of them are pretty strong. Then for our artifact, elemental projector is the one I'm mainly using. This just gives you a massive damage increase, 90%. If you're using a weapon with the same element that you have a status effect applied on yourself. So say I'm using this fire one, I apply a fire status effect to myself, and then I just do 90% increased damage, and that's a massive damage increase, especially for bosses that don't have immunity phases that you can burn down super quickly. So that's why using that is very good. If you don't want to use that, pretty much any other artifact is going to be fine. If you need more survivability, you can do one of those. You know, you can do the invulnerability artifact. Anything like that is going to work good. Now for the shield and grenade mod, pretty much the only good anointeds for shield and grenade mods, if you're not doing terror stuff, is the extra elemental damage on action skill end for 10 seconds. Don't stack them, so don't do a extra fire damage on shield and grenade. One of them will work. Do a different element on both of them. And any grenade, I don't really use grenades. The piss grenade could be good because it makes enemies take 20% more damage. You could do that, and that could be some damage increase. Any shield that you want, any super tanky shield is going to work really well. And if you don't have the glitch that's pretty much being forced upon you if you're using that type of weapon or weapon with that on it, these aren't going to be super useful for fights like Grave Ward where you can kill in one action skill, but any other fight in the game that has immunity phases or that you can't kill in one fadeaway, this is going to work very well, because after your fadeaway is gone and now you don't have guaranteed crits and all that extra damage, now you get 100% increased damage from multiple different elements, which is a really big damage increase for 10 seconds, which you can probably get back in your fadeaway within that 10 seconds, making you just not have a really big damage decrease in between your fadeaways. And for weapons, King's Call are amazing. This build is pretty much like one of the first builds that went on with the game. I think I even did a build with this that was almost the same talent layout. This is definitely an upgraded one, but since the game came out, this is pretty much like the build, especially with King's Call before it was nerfed. It's so amazing though. So King's Call or Queen's Call, they just have different elements. So like a Queen's Call is corrosive, and I think cryo and radiation, and then King's Call are the shock and the fire. Lucian's Call are always super good. Pretty much anything that has effect on crits, so Lucian's Call super good, Rowan's Call also super good. That's pretty much the main weapons I use. You can also use like a Maggie, that would be pretty decent, but I think these other three weapons that I mentioned are going to be better overall. So that is pretty much the entire build. Like I said, I'm probably going to be doing a lot more specific boss killing builds. There's even a variation on this build for Flak that's just a different talent variation that I'll probably be doing a video on as well. So subscribe if you want to see more Borderlands 3 content. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this build. If you guys have any questions about where to get any of these items or anything like that, how the build works, anything like that, leave it in the comments. I'll try to reply to everybody, and thanks for watching.